Okay, I believe it's 7:05, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. This is just a SORBA session on year-end giving. It's titled Your Ultimate Fundraising Toolkit. So I hope that everyone listening and everyone who tunes into the recording comes away feeling like you have some actual tools to use for your year-end giving campaigns. Um, as you probably know, I'm the development director for SORBA, Jen Flavin. I'm excited to be presenting this topic with you because, as you know, I really love talking about fundraising, and year-end giving is it's a great topic that we should be focusing on right now. So why year-end giving? I asked the question here, shouldn't we encourage donations all year long? And the truth is, yes, we should. But there's some statistics I'd like to share with you. Almost 30% of nonprofits raise up to half of their annual fundraising during year-end giving campaigns. That's a really significant chunk of uh, the revenue that's brought in. And there are some statistics that show that that's even higher, and it depends on the nonprofit. SORBA is structured a little bit differently, that it does seem like when there's something going on that funds will come in. So you have a festival, you have an event, maybe even during work days. But year-end giving is still significant, even for your chapter. In 2023, Giving Tuesday raised about $3.1 billion in the US alone. And that's not including, global contributions because it is a worldwide effort. Even as charitable giving levels do fluctuate year to year, many nonprofits still see strong year-end fundraising results. So if it's a year where there's a downturn in the economy, or there's something else going on, like an election, people tend to see, those donations fluctuate as regular campaigns are going. Year-end giving tends to hold strong. So it's important to make sure that we're focusing on that. And then in this presentation, I built in some of these contemplative questions. So as we're learning something like fundraising, it can be really important to stop and reflect on the messaging and just think about things. And if you have a paper and pencil, or, a way to take notes, this could be a good time to jot something down. So the question here, do you make most of your personal contributions during the year or year end? And have you made a year-end gift before? So when I think about fundraising, I like to think about how do I like to give? I tend to give a few times through the year and then also at year end. And I like those things where you can buy something with the nonprofit's name on it, like some swag, and give that as a gift. And then you can tell the person receiving it that this not only is a gift for you, but it also benefited a nonprofit. So that's one way that you can leverage your year-end giving. So just for a moment, reflect on your personal contributions. What inspires you to give at the end of the year? Is it to get an incentive? Do you like the tax break at the end of the year? Or do you tend not to give at the end of the year and you give at different times of the year? So here, before we dive too far into year-end giving, I have just a few basics to review about general fundraising. These are some important things to understand. At its core, fundraising includes four tried and true steps. There are a lot of different approaches. There are different theories on fundraising. If you go down the rabbit hole of listening to podcasts on fundraising, like I like to do, or read books about it, there are going to be different research-backed things that you can learn. But four basic principles of fundraising include identification, cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship. And I put a note here, don't worry, a lot of this happens naturally, but the more aware you are of the process, the more intentional you can become. So we're going to go through these individually. Identification, I've got the little photo of the guy with the binoculars looking for stuff. So he's identifying who are our donors and our potential donors. For us, it's writers, it's bike shops, it's community leaders, industry partners, and then et cetera. So for your chapter, who's the et cetera? Who are your donors and your potential donors? Is it people within your friend circle? Is it a lot of your volunteers? Is your board giving? Do you have close partnerships with like a local restaurant where people like to go after a ride or after a trail day or something? Do you have like a pizza place that likes to supply food? Maybe those are your donors. And you can think of these people as they're in-kind donors as well. So when I use the term donor, potential donor, I don't just mean the people who are giving, contributing large amounts of funds. I mean, those people that are really contributing in a variety of ways. Maybe they do the porta potties for free at your event, or maybe, there are other ways that people are pitching in. So, who are these people? And how are we organizing these lists of people? It's not easy. So you could start with a spreadsheet. You can, you could have a notebook that you're passing around within at the meetings where people are jotting down ideas. Uh, I mean, spreadsheets really are the classic, but some people are sophisticated enough to have a CRM working for you. Who owns the lists and works with these contacts? And I put a little hint, your whole team really should be pitching in. So if you're fundraising, if you have one person on your board or you have a volunteer who really likes to do special events or they like to work with donors, that's really fantastic. That's amazing. But the whole team should really be helping to identify the donors. So if they know of somebody who has the capacity to give or has the interest to give, or they made a major gift, everyone could be pitching in to offer a thank you, or if they have a relationship with somebody that they think could be a potential donor, to make sure that they are bringing that to someone else's attention who would actually steward that donor, or um, go make and ask themselves and bring that person into your organization. So the contemplative questions for this section is, how do you identify your current donors? So how do we find these people? There's a good chance they're the people in these images. They're writing your trails. It's people within your community. It's people who know who you are. And it doesn't always have to be these wealthy individuals. When we think of donors, a lot of people classically go, if we can just get one Oprah Winfrey, right? If we could just get one, super wealthy person who's very interested in being generous. But there are a lot of people that have the capacity to give fairly significant gifts, and they're often the unidentified person in the room. So how do you identify these people and where do you meet them? Well, being within a mountain biking organization, it's going to be something trail related, something related to your chapter. It could be someone at a work day, it could be a volunteer, it could be somebody who's attending an event. So just making sure that you know how they can find you. We've tried to make that easy with every.org. That's, the best solution that we found that we could do on a regional level. But in your community and on a local basis, it's really up to you and your team to get the word out about how people can find you. How do they find your donation page? Is it easy for people to give? Do they know what the money's being used for? All those things are really important when it comes to identifying current donors and then trying to pull them into your organization. Next, we have cultivation. So how do you cultivate donors? Basically, you just interact with them. That's really all that means. So cultivating donors means to interact with them. It means to interact on somewhat of a strategic level, meaning that you're trying to make sure that they have positive experiences with you and your organization. It means that you're communicating your progress with them, your needs. They're aware of what's going on in your organization. And there's a common theory when it comes to fundraising and when it comes to sales, that there should be 7 touch points before you make an ask. So if it's sales, you would say, there's 7 touch points. I want them to see the commercial. I want them to see a logo on a sticker out somewhere. I want them to hear our name on a podcast as a sponsor. I want 7 touch points. Maybe they meet someone in person. They travel past your office. And it's the same with fundraising. So every trail experience, so every time someone rides, that's a touch point because they came to your location. Every time they see your social media, that counts as a touch point. Every personal interaction, it's another one. Social events that they might attend, like if there's people that hang out after the ride or there's something more structured that's social that they can come to, And then, of course, email. That's a very deliberate touch point that we have. So every time people see your logo, hear your name, or interact with your brand, that's a touch point. So your chapter name and logo, that's your brand. So I put a note here, give out those stickers and sell your merch. That's cultivating supporters, that cultivates relationships. And whether you even know it or not, these people all have a relationship with your chapter. Every writer does. So everyone who talks about coming to your trail system and everybody who either complains or appreciates the things that you do, those are all people interacting with you and with your brand. So if we can help make sure that those are positive, that they're as intentional as possible, and that they're out there. So, there's some trail systems that like it's not clearly marked. People may not know that it's a Sorba trail. There's not a lot of funding out there to get signage up, or maybe it's just not a very commonly used trail. That happens a lot. And so making sure that we're doing our best to try and make sure that like your logo's on a sticker, that's out somewhere, that people have access to that. They could put it on their car if they want to. There's some swag to buy that has your logo and your chapter's identification on it. So the contemplative question for this section, how do you cultivate potential donors that you meet? So if you were to interact with somebody and you have the feeling that this could be a potential donor for your chapter, that they have something to give, how would you cultivate that relationship? Would you just strike up a conversation and talk about the trails? Would you make it a point to mention something that your trail system could use or that your chapter needs as far as equipment or funding? Um, what would feel natural for you to cultivate that potential donor? That's something to think about. So you don't have to go with someone else's style. If someone's really straightforward, or if they're talking about money all the time, or they're really comfortable asking, your version could be a little bit more subtle. You could talk about the work that you do and maybe invite them to a trail day, or you could invite them to a race or to some other event. So how can you make this a natural relationship without feeling transactional? Transactional is hot button word in the fundraising profession where people say, don't be transactional, be relational. That means you're putting the person first, the relationship first, and you're going to make it to where you can come back to this person again. Transactional is like, I sold you something. That's that moment of like, well, I bought a jersey, and so I donated this to the chapter because the chapter gets a cut of that sale. A relational gift it could still be that same involvement, but it would be a lot more like the person gets a personalized thank you. And you did something to reach out to them personally and make them feel like they're part of your group. They're not just somebody that gave some money, and that they're part of this now. So the next phase is solicitation. So this is the part where you ask for money. How do you ask? You can host an in-person event and ask directly. In-person really is the most effective. So you could ask this person to meet you for a ride, or you could just host this event with a group of people, and someone at some point, maybe the chapter president or whoever's comfortable doing this, could stand up and just tell people what the need is at the chapter. The need is for funding and how much funding is needed. And this is the way that people can give. So you can scan this QR code, or you can get on our website, that it's all available there. Another way is that you can send email appeal letters or videos. And this is a way that you can cast a really wide net. You can get in touch with tons of people all at once, and a lot of people can see this. And it's very cost effective. So if you're trying to do these in-person events, there's the hindrance of cost and logistics of getting people there. But email is, for the most part, it's inexpensive, and it just takes the time to do it. Another way is to send direct mail, and this does cost more, but usually get a better return than with the digital approaches. And direct mail, some people think it's a thing of the past, but there's still a lot of evidence and statistics that show that people who receive those mailers, that they do send them back with donations in them still. And you also can include the QR code on that piece of mail, so that makes it easy that people can just give with their phones and not have to send money or write a check or figure out how to do that because most people aren't really doing that anymore. Um, and you can post on social media. This is another way to cast a wide net and, reach a lot of people in a very convenient way because they're checking their phones anyway, they're on social media already, and then they're seeing your messaging. So then I put a note here, what other ways do you solicit donations? So each chapter is different here. Some chapters, they may have huge turnout to their chapter meetings, and that's an easy way for somebody to just stand up and pass the hat around. Maybe that's not the case at your chapter, and you need to do something special to solicit those donations. And if you're not sending an email appeal letter or email for Giving Tuesday, and email really is probably the most practical for most chapters, just try it this year and see what happens. You might be surprised at the outcome that you get. So here are the contemplative questions for this section. If you're uncomfortable asking for money, try to dig a little deeper to discover why. There's a lot of psychology behind giving, why people give, why people talk about money or why they don't. So what's your relationship with money like? If money kind of makes you a little bit squeamish to talk about, you're uncomfortable with it, try to figure out why. Is it because growing up you thought it was inappropriate to talk about money and do you still believe that? Or is there something different there that you think you're going to make the other person feel uncomfortable by talking about how much a piece of equipment costs for your chapter and how much money you would need to raise to buy it? So whatever that kind of hang up is, try to figure that out and maybe see if you can iron it out because there's really nothing offensive about sharing the progress that you're making as a chapter, the great work you're doing, and the needs that you have. Because especially if you're a volunteer, you can say how you're giving your time. And especially if you're donating too, you can talk about how you like to support the chapter and you wish that more people would support the chapter financially. And if you've never asked for money before, this could be probably the biggest hang up for most people because a lot of people really haven't asked for money before. So how do you do that? Start by asking for a small favor. Can you share our post? Will you attend the meeting? Will you come to a work day? And then they come to the work day. We need somebody next time to bring a case of water. Do you think you could do that? Or, just start getting comfortable asking people for a favor. And then that can lead to feeling more comfortable asking for money. And something I also like to remember and to remind other people is that if someone asks you for a favor, usually it's really not an inconvenience for the person being asked. It's almost a little bit flattering. Like that person thought of me, that they needed something and they reached out to me. I'm really glad they did that. I'm really glad that in my friend's time of need, I was the person they thought of. That's great. I'm so glad I was that person. So your chapter can do that on a broader level. It's not quite that friend to friend level, but it's still your chapter reaching out to the community and making sure that that person knows how important they are because it really is important. So stewardship, what do donors get? Often, here are the main things that donors want. They want their voices heard. So if you can send surveys, call them up, ask them what they think, invite them to meetings, invite your donors to have their voices heard. Because when people care enough about your chapter to send a contribution, they care enough to share their opinion. They care enough to contribute in a bigger way. So helping to make sure that they feel that their voices are heard. It doesn't mean you always have to do everything they suggest. It just means that you say, I hear you. I think that's a good suggestion. Thanks for your contribution. We all need to be contributing. Um, they want swag, so you could send them a sticker in the mail. You could send them a shirt, hat, mud guard, some other branded gift, depending on the gift that they made and what you think would be appropriate for that tiered level. They want recognition. Not all donors want recognition, but a lot of them do. So I just put here, ask first. That's a pretty simple solution. Do your major donors want listed on the website or in your year-end newsletter? Do you have something on site where you identify donors? Do you have like a sign somewhere? Do you have a bench that you could put someone's name on if they make a major contribution? And then you also have to check your regulations because not everyone can do everything at the various sites where we work. But What's within your reach of how you can recognize donors? It can be a little bit tricky. Um, but a year-end newsletter or a year-end, annual report, that's a pretty simple spot where you can put donors. But again, ask them because some want to be anonymous. Donors also want to be connected. Donors give so that they can be connected to your cause. So keep them in the loop and really make friends with them. They care about your organization. So, like I said before, this person cares enough about what you're doing and they think it's important enough to actually make a financial contribution. So they want to be connected. They want to feel like they're the first to know about things. They want to know about trail status. They want to know when work is being done. They want to see those before and after pictures. They're excited about what you're doing. That's why they gave. And they want to be thanked. We all want to be thanked, even if we don't want public recognition. So I put a question here. Would you give again to an organization that didn't send a thank you? That's a tricky one. Some people would say yes. Some people would say, I didn't really need a thank you note. I gave because they're doing important work and I want to be part of it. But you can know that if someone gives a major gift and there's no acknowledgement, there's no follow-up, there's no phone call, a card didn't come in the mail, you almost need to reach out and go, did you guys even get my gift? They just heard crickets. Um, that's not inspiring for people to give again. So even if it's a personalized email, even if you just pick up the phone and call someone, even if you're, someone on the board calls the donor, it's really important to thank people. So the contemplative questions for this: think of a time you felt appreciated. How did someone make you feel that way? Sometimes it's the simplest thing, like a card in the mail. What I like to send to people is a thank you card with a SORBA sticker inside of it. And that's not a big deal. It doesn't cost us a lot to do. It doesn't take me very long to do it. But I like to think that, if I gave a gift and then a week later that shows up, it's it's just the extra mile besides the receipt they get and then some kind of a thank you email. And then if it's a major gift, you could even package up, a pair of socks, a hat, a shirt, something like that. So that would really make someone feel appreciated. So how can we make our donors feel appreciated? That's really the big question here. And then also, I put consider a time you didn't feel appreciated or you even felt ignored. How can you ensure that your donors don't feel that way? So, this doesn't mean that you have to spend a ton of time. You don't have to spend a whole bunch of money. You don't have to take a chunk out of the money that they sent you to send them something back. You could just announce their name publicly if that's something that they would be interested in. And this is a big deal for sponsorships too, because a lot of sponsors, half the reason that they like to sponsor is to get that recognition and that public attention. So we just have to make sure that we're holding up our end of the bargain with those types of things. So this is a good reflective time to think about, how can you make sure that your donors don't ever just feel ghosted essentially after they give? So back to the year end part, we've talked about fundraising in general. So now we'll talk about how to engage donors, especially in October, November, and December for that year end, crucial year end time. So why do people make year end gifts? The number one reason that people report is just the spirit of giving. Year end is a season filled with gift giving. Some individuals may be inspired to also give back to a charitable organization. They may be reflecting on their year. They may be feeling a bit more appreciative for the trails right now. So, just that spirit of giving. Another reason is raises and bonuses. Many employers increase their employees' pay at the end of the year. So you can get a year end promotion or raise, giving them more disposable income to spend on charitable gifts. Sometimes you get a Christmas bonus and you think, well, this is bonus income, so I can make a gift out of this. And then also we have in the US tax benefits. So, of course, money donated to nonprofits is tax deductible, and that's something to emphasize to your donors. And some individuals make these gifts to reduce their taxable income and therefore their tax burden. So at the bottom, I asked that question again. Have you made a year-end gift and what inspired you to give? So was it just simply the spirit of giving? You just felt generous? Is it because you did get a raise or a bonus and you wanted to give a cut of that to something that you care about? Or is it simply for the tax benefit? Because, that is a benefit. So let's talk a little bit about strategic planning. Right now, you aren't too late. We're in the middle of October. Starting planning as early as you can. October is a great time. The day before Giving Tuesday is not a great time. You've got an email that you want to send out tomorrow, and you're just crafting it up, and you want to make sure that you're planning a little bit farther ahead than that. So, how can you work a year-end giving campaign into your schedule? Do you have a free afternoon that you could think about this? Do you want to talk about it at your next meeting with the other people involved in your chapter? Do you need a one-on-one conversation with somebody that's helpful at your chapter, like your social media person or someone who's helping to handle emails? Who do you need on your team, and how can you make this happen? Can you spend a few hours planning or have a conversation with a board member? And can you schedule your emails and posts in advance? So that's really helpful to be able to do if you can do that. Next, we have to think about who are we asking? So we need to create these lists. And a few ideas that you could use are list your past donors. So look at who gave last year and the year before. Your current donors, meaning basically anyone with a recurring donation, someone who goes above and beyond for your chapter, somebody who you identify as someone significant that's a donor. Your current members, those are all donors because the membership itself is a donation. Your past members, so if someone's membership has lapsed, it doesn't mean that they don't care about your chapter anymore. It just means they didn't renew their membership. So that's somebody that you could be reaching out to specifically. Event attendees. These people got to come, be there in person, see what you're all about, see what's happening. They're great potential donors. Volunteers, of course, they have a lot of stake in your organization. Board members, they have tons of stake in your organization. Your industry partners. Right now is a really tough time for industry partners to ask for funds, but maybe they could contribute. Here's something that SORBA Maine has going on. We have an industry partner that likes to give gift. So we could take that and say everybody with X amount of donation is entered to win a prize from this industry partner. And that helps to drive donations. It also helps to involve that industry partner. And then your community leaders, those can be great donors, and it can be people who are very influential in those giving circles. So if you have the time and the tools, segmenting will make you more effective. And if not, your messaging can span all of these groups. So what I mean by segmenting is you have a special message going to current members. You have a special message going to past members. You have a special message going to the event attendees and to all of these people. So you're saying something specific to each one of them in a way that you think is going to inspire them to give. If you don't have that time or you can't segment them out effectively in that way without duplicating lists or making it too confusing, that's okay. Just send that same message and just trying to make it general that it would be appropriate for everyone. So a reflection moment here. Who do you want to target in your area? Who maybe isn't giving that you think probably should be or would be interested in giving? Where do you think they get their information? Do you think if you share it on social media, they'll see it? Or do you need to email them specifically? Or is a phone call best if you're comfortable with that? And how can you get in touch with past donors? There's a saying in fundraising that a donor isn't a true donor until they've given more than once. So how do we take people who are interested enough, they cared enough, and they made a gift? How do we inspire them to give again? How do we get in touch with them? And then the next question is, what are we asking for? Do you have a goal in mind for these funds? Is the money going toward anything specific? It doesn't have to, but from what I've seen of the chapters who are active in every.org, if there's something that's specific, like we're help us raise money for this piece of equipment, help us raise money for this specific item, those seem to escalate more quickly and get more donations. It's just the people getting excited about what you're going to do with the money. But it doesn't have to be towards anything specific. And I listed here that it really doesn't have to. People who care about your chapter, they know that you're working all the time. They know that you're working hard and that you do need the funds to help maintain what's going on. Um, and the next question here is, do you want tiered levels? Every.org now offers tiered levels. If you're not using every.org too, I keep talking about every.org, that's fine if you have a different platform that you're using for donations. Tiered levels can be helpful. It also, some people in fundraising don't like tiered levels because they think that someone who might give it the $1,000 level, if you only list it up to 500, they're not going to give at the $1,000 level. But some people believe that if they were not sure what to give and you suggested 50, well, that's probably where they'll give. So you kind of have to know your audience on that one, and you can try tiered levels and try not tiering them and then seeing what you like best. So a couple of questions here. If you dream big, what would you raise and how would it change your community? So if you could have any amount of money for your chapter and you really could just go out there for year-end giving, how much would you raise? What would you do with it and how would it change the community? And once you've thought about this, I would write that plan out and really kind of think how can I make this a bigger thing than just year in giving? Because truly these campaigns can grow outside of Giving Tuesday. We've got Giving Tuesday, and then you can carry that into the holidays, you can carry it into year in giving. And then here we are in January, and you're halfway through to this big goal that you set. And you can kick off that year in gift drive. You can carry that into the new year, and then you can continue spreading that message of how close you are to your goal. So you can carry it beyond year in giving. It doesn't have to just end at the end of the year. And here's another question for this. Are there incentives? There don't have to be. You can simply go out there and share what you're doing, share the impact you're making, and ask for a donation. But it can help if you've got a sweepstakes going, some swag, recognition. That means like we will share your brand on our website. We will put you in our annual campaign or our annual uh, year-end report that you might email out to people and have people's names listed in it. Um, so this is a great way to help establish industry partners for those who aren't ready to give funds, but they can offer incentive prizes. So like I was talking about before, we have an industry partner who likes to give prizes, but they're not able to really give financially. So they'll give a prize that we can tell everybody, anyone who gives at this level is now eligible to receive to be entered to win a prize. So think about for your chapter, what are the incentives that you would like to give for your year in giving? And how do we get repeat donors? So like I mentioned before, a lot of people say that a donor is not a true donor until they've given more than once. So how do you get these people to keep giving? You have to steward each and every gift. That means that no amount is too small for a personalized thank you. If someone sends us $10 at Sorba, Maine, they get an email that says thank you for your contribution. Now, it may just be a quick email, and every.org does an automatic email. So that is true. They get an automatic receipt and an email after their contribution. But then we also reach out personally and make sure that we're thanking people. And that's something hopefully that your chapter has time to do. And if you don't, maybe it's a matter of figuring out, how do you make time to do that? Maybe it's once a month you sit down and you've collected a list of all the people that need a thank you. Maybe it's, you have to hand that off to somebody else at the chapter if it's just not something that you can take on. But if you want these people to give again, then they need to feel appreciated. The second piece of this is to pull people into your organization and really connect them to your mission. So making sure that people feel informed, they know what you're doing, they know why you're doing it, they're excited about what you're doing, and they can't feel that way if they're not informed. So people who don't really know what's going on, or they feel like there's not a lot of communication coming out, they're not as likely to give because they just don't have that connection. So how can we get repeat donors, you know, thanking them and then just keeping them informed? So what's a very easy, low cost way to thank donors that doesn't take a ton of time that you can take on? A quick thank you email to me is a really good solution for that. But if that's not something you can take on, again, maybe you pass that off to someone else. You can mail stickers and a thank you card. I mentioned that's what we do. You can give a discount for swag. This is something that we've also done is give our donors a special discount at the Sorba store. And a lot of them don't even end up using it, but they feel good when they receive it. So that's the important part. And sending those personalized thank you emails. So meaning personalized as far as like, something about this person. So you might ask them how their partner is doing. They might ask them if how that concert went that they talked about going to, or just any little tidbit that you can throw in there that really makes it personal is a big time plus. Um, and you can consider other ideas that you have and try to keep it simple. So you can get really creative with this and come up with something that's, we print their name on somewhere, or you give them a shout out on social media. So thinking about the things that you have on hand and ways that you can thank your donors. The next phase of this is marketing. Are people aware that you have a year-end giving campaign? If people don't know, then obviously they can't give. So how can we make sure that people are aware of what's going on with your chapter, that you have a year-end giving campaign coming up, that you're receiving donations right now? You can market in person by hosting an event. We talked about email marketing. You can post on your website. You can take advantage of social media. Peer-to-peer fundraising is a great way to do that. People can donate their birthday to a fundraiser. People can just simply share messaging on their social media pages. Um, do you have any media partners locally or online? So maybe you have a local, like the Patch or some of those like really that local centric media partners that could share your message, or some bike related media partners. This could be locally or online. So locally meaning like your local bike shop, somewhere that people are frequenting and going and they can see this messaging. So how is your chapter effective in spreading the word? You have to stop and think about that for your own chapter and your community. What's a way that you have communicated in the past that you found really effective? And what are some things you tried before that just maybe felt like a waste of time? Don't do those ones again, but really focus on your strengths and what your chapter is good at as far as spreading the word. So next, this one is probably the most daunting for a lot of people, making the ask. How do you ask for money? I broke it down into 6 steps here. It sounds like a lot, I know, versus like just asking somebody. But step one is really to consider who you're talking to and what inspires them to give. You may not know this, so you may just kind of have to guess and think, well, I know they have kids, so probably the future of our trail system is important, or I know they're into racing, or I know they're a new rider, and so that they want to see new people on the trail. So think about what inspires this person, why they're interested. Step two is to fine tune that message. So it might feel awkward at first, and then you'll become more confident. So that just means, the first time you ask, maybe you just kind of blurted it out and you didn't quite think it through. That's okay. It doesn't matter. It's a practice, and you'll get more confident. Step three is to share why you care. What makes you give, and why is this important to you? So if you're a volunteer with Sorba, that's incredibly powerful. You're somebody who gives your time. You have, a finite amount of free time, and you choose to give that time to your chapter. So what inspires you to give? That's going to inspire other people. And step four is to ask. So just ask the question, will you contribute to our year-end fundraiser? Will you contribute to the trails that you love? And step five is to follow up and send a thank you, no matter the outcome. So if you ask someone in person and you had this opportunity, you should always thank the person, even if they chose not to give, because they gave their time and they listened and sorry, they took the time to have this conversation with you. And then step 6 is to capture their information. So you now have a donor to work with. That's fantastic. Make sure this person feels informed and appreciated. And then you go back to that stewardship model. Um, sorry, guys, I'm not used to talking this long. Um, The follow-up is to set up your chapter for success next year. Follow-up just includes those thank yous, donor reports, and document your impact. So donor report just means this list of people, what they gave, maybe why. You can indicate, did they respond to an email? Did they see it on social? Did you call them? Was this a conversation between people? And then document your impact. So that means how much did you raise? What were those funds used for? So maybe next year you can say, last year we raised X amount of money for this, and this year our goal is to raise, this amount of money for something different. And you'll have those records right in front of you, and it will be so easy if you document as you go. So what tools are available to your chapter? We've got every.org. You have access to Canva. I've got some sample appeal letters and some phone and conversational script that we're going to run through. So a sample appeal letter, we need to understand what goes into these letters that you're going to have to write to email to your audience. The subject line needs to catch their attention. The greeting should sound as personal as possible. So you can start with a story or a question to draw the person in, and then tell us what you'll use the funds for. So like $50 helps us to do this. $100 helps us to do this. You also really need to make the donation process super easy, like click here, something really simple. It helps to include a photo with faces if you can, and it should be signed from the person, not from the organization. And something else that's helpful is to always use a PS. So that's space that sometimes can draw people down to the bottom of the page and draw them back into your message. So PS, did you know? Or PS, if you give today, you're entered into a drawing or your gift is matched, or, it helps us to accomplish this goal. So here's a sample letter that I did write, and this is going to be on the drive. I'm not going to sit here and read this whole letter to you guys. I'll spare you that. But I used the subject, want more trails in town name? Here's how. I feel like that would draw people in. You might come up with something even better than that. And then I put my name as the person's greeting. That's great to do if you can. If your email capabilities don't have that, whatever system you're using, dear supporter, dear friend of chapter name. Those things are a bit more personal than just like, launching into the message. I started with a did you know? So you can start with a did you know or a story, and then here's how we make a difference. And then I signed it from my name, not from Sorba. And then a PS. Did you know we host our famous Fall Fest November 1st and 2nd? Click for details. So it's as succinct as possible, but it also it covers all those bases. So the characteristics that you want to go for is that the messaging feels warm, it's informative and direct. It doesn't leave the reader guessing or filling in the blanks, like how do I donate? Where do I mail a check if I want to give a check instead? You really need to do everything that you can to make this an easy process for people. And you want to tug at their heartstrings, but this is a mountain biking organization, so we don't want to be weepy, overly dramatic, which I don't think anyone on this call or watching this would do. But making it something that's a little bit tugs on people's heartstrings, like the future of this trail system, or what does this mean for our community? What does this do for people? What's your own tone of voice and your writing style too? That's something to consider because we don't all sound the same and we don't all need to sound the same and we don't want to sound like AI. So how can your voice and your writing style shine at this time? And then the cadence, how often do we send these emails? When it comes to frequency, there are a few stats to know. Emails sent on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday get the most engagement. Marketing emails sent from 9 to 12 on Tuesday garner the most engagement, followed by Monday and Wednesday at the same time. So Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday from 9 to 12. The weekend's basically a dead zone, so I would certainly avoid that. And there are different studies about the cadence. 33% of marketers send weekly emails, 26% send multiple times a month, and 63% said they just adjust their send frequency for less engaged subscribers. So, depending again on how sophisticated your system is, your cadence could just be a monthly email. But around Giving Tuesday, at least once a week would be a good cadence for your emails. And of course, without overdoing it and without spamming people. So the budget here, how much can you spend? If your budget is $0 to make this happen, then you've just got to go with emails, personal phone calls, calls from your board of directors, and peer-to-peer fundraising. If you have some marketing money that you can use, you could try direct mail to your top 20% or something along those lines where you're sending a letter to the people that you think are important to send to, or you can boost ads on social media that costs money. You could also hire an influencer to partner on your social. There are different ways that you could, get this messaging out that do cost money. So don't think it has to be free unless it just really does have to be free. So as you sort through your personal emails and junk mail, here's something to reflect on. Try paying attention to the appeal letters that you receive. What makes some stand out? What makes some bland, and what makes some really annoying? And we're all different, but try to think about that for yourself. What are you likely to click on? What is most likely to be off-putting for you personally? And check your confidence here. When you consider asking for money, what are your obstacles and how confident do you feel crafting a successful year-end giving plan? And what questions do you have about doing that? So now we will open it up to Q&A. And for all of you who hung in there for all this time, thank you so much for attending. And now we will take questions. Not everyone at once. All right. I'll give it
I'll
just
chime
another
in.
second.
I'll
Okay, go
chime in.
ahead, Sue. Go ahead.
So on the way home from the meetings, we stopped in Columbus, Georgia, and rode Standing Boy. And of course,
Awesome.
I had to learn the history of it. So we found some locals and we asked, and when I Googled it, but it came from like a $2 million private donation, and it doesn't really get into that, but what a story that is, because it's a great trail that, Imba Trail Solutions came in, and if you can fundraise or get that kind of donation, the trails that they built out of it it's unbelievable. So we really enjoyed it. It was a great learning experience, actually. And then we met a guy working on the trail with his Sorba jersey on, and it was great. But when you see that, you realize there's money to be had out there. It's just, how do you do it? But this was great. So thank you.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you found this to be useful. And what a cool experience. And um, yeah, you're absolutely right that there is money to be had. It's out there. And if we don't ask, we won't get it.
Yep. Never hurts to ask.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And I have a question that kind of goes with your marketing costs. Could you consider part of your fundraising goal to go towards the cost of marketing towards the fundraising effort itself?
You could. So the funds, like basically paying yourself back for funds that were raised. Yeah, definitely. Because giving, the cool thing with year-end giving is that it's unrestricted funds. So you can use those for your marketing. Now, if you're saying, we're raising money for this piece of equipment, you could say like an asterisk of like beyond overhead or something like that. But if you have expenses that just need to come out of that income, then absolutely it can, because those are all unrestricted funds. The only time that you couldn't do something like that is if you do receive restricted funds, or if it's not in good faith with what the donor wants. But in general, yeah, I mean, if you're raising money to go toward a piece of equipment and you took 10% of what you raised to do things that need to happen within your chapter, even there's nothing unethical about that. That's a good use of funds. So that's even a good thought that you could essentially like pay back the budget of the chapter by doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of getting to the point of, spending money towards your fundraising efforts usually should be considered as an investment rather than a cost, because you'd hope um to regain that money that you spent in your marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such an important distinction, is that it's an investment. Good question. Thanks for that. Well, it doesn't look like we'll have any other questions, so we can wrap it up here. If anybody is watching the recording after the fact and you have questions, you can just feel free to email me. You can reach out to myself or to Philip and just let us know what's on your mind, and we're happy to help. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your afternoon, evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.